Hi, welcome to editing a draft for MLA formatting. In this video, I'm going to be going over some specifics about how to make this in proper MLA format, but also get rid of some old stuff if you've been working in a draft along the way. So for my students, I'm asking you to first do a file, save as, save a copy of it. So you just go to File, Save a Copy, and we are going to rename this Final Fairy Tale. That's what we've been working on, is a final fairy tale draft. So we are going to save it as that. So we still have our other one saved that has all the other old drafts in it. So this is going to create a new one. It's going to look the same, but you're going to notice at the top it has the new name. So I know if I delete anything in here, I still have my old drafts in a separate document. If you don't do that, that's a problem because you're actually going to be submitting your other drafts for a draft check, summative grade for the revision process so that I can assess you on your ability to revise your writing. All right, so what I just did is I deleted out all the old drafts that were underneath this because we've been working on adding drafts time after time after time. So we're going to pretend this is my draft 6, the most recent draft, the one that I received peer feedback on that I've already made some changes on to improve it before this. And we're pretending that I am done making changes to this as far as how it's written. I'm ready to just make it look good and turn it in. So I deleted all the other stuff. And at this point, really, I'm ready for the basic instructions. So for those of you watching these instructions, there's a video coming up next. It's going to go into the specifics that's just for MLA format. So now you're ready to go, you're ready for the editing, but if you haven't already done your peer feedback and looked at that and actually applied what your peers said, now is the time to do that before we go any further. Hi, welcome. This part of the instructions is how to actually format the rest of your paper. The previous step was about how to get rid of all the old stuff and how to save your draft. So what we are working on here is how to follow MLA format to make our essay be your story or whatever you wrote, actually, no matter what it is, to look like proper MLA format. So one thing you're going to notice is yours probably doesn't look exactly like mine on the font. So I'm going to change mine to what I believe yours probably looks like unless you changed it, which is the default in Word. So it probably looks more like this font choice, you know, the type of actual text that it's in. This is Calibri. It's the default in most Microsoft programs unless you've changed yours. So Times New Roman 12-point font is the font that I usually tell students to use because I've never met a teacher or professor who did not accept that font. If you go with a different font, there's some professors and teachers you'll come across that are really picky and they don't like these other ones. And part of this is to make sure we have consistent page limits and those types of things in the requirements. So to change the font, we just do select all the text. The shortcut for that we'll use quite a bit is Control A. You just click those at the same time. And boom, it selects all your text. And if I scroll through mine, you're going to notice it's all selected. I did not have to click and drag or do anything with that. So it's a really nice, handy thing to do. So to change the font, I go up to my top menu and it's the home menu. I'm already there. And then I can select my font and I can go Times New Roman and I want it to be 12-point. Another thing you can do is you can right click on this and you can see that there's a menu that comes up, a short menu with the font options there as well. All right, since I have this all selected, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to fix some of the line spacing on the document. The default in Word is to have this weird like extra space between paragraphs, and they like to have it left aligned with no indentation. So MLA, we have some definite things that we do to space things out. That makes it easier for teachers to leave feedback. Even on a digital version of this, that's still nice because it's not overwhelming for the eyes when you're reading a bunch of papers. Also, the indents help us see where those paragraphs are. And you're going to notice when you read a book, we have indented paragraphs. So it's pretty standard for writing in the English language in most disciplines to do that. Now, there are some times when we do keep our paper formatted left aligned, but this isn't one of them. So what I'm going to do is I still have my stuff selected. If yours isn't, remember that's Control A. It will select everything. Once you do that, just anywhere in the grade text is you just right click and you get this lovely menu. You go to Paragraph. So right there, click Paragraph. And you get this menu, this pop-up box menu. You're going to notice that mine has some weird stuff down here under spacing. It has the 0 for before, that's correct. So if yours is blank or says auto, just move it to 0. Or you can simply highlight this and type 0. After this one's messed up, that's what's giving us the extra space between sections. So I'm gonna actually just type 0 there, okay? Also, over here it says multiple 1.08. I don't want that. I want just simple double spacing, and it's already a default in here to do double spacing because it's used so much. Nothing should be in the at thing, okay? That should be blank. It gives you a little preview down right below that in this little window of what it's gonna look like. So I can see mine and see how it's nicely, evenly spaced all the way down, okay? So let's click OK. And that's how it should look. Now I still don't have my indentation. I could have done it in that same menu. I just wanted you to see what my paper looks like. So spacing's beautiful, but I can't tell where paragraphs begin and end very easily. So this is why we need the indentation. So same thing, we have our text all selected, we right click, we go to paragraph, and again I could have done this while I was there. We have this section called indentation. Leave the left and right alone. Those should stay at 0, okay? Go to special and pick first line. And it should be 0.5, not 5, 0.5. It's gonna give you a little preview down here. See, it's a little indent there, and click OK. Now some kids say, Mrs. Thomas, can't I just go to the beginning of the paragraph and click tab? And my issue is, do you really want to do that for every single paragraph in your paper? Probably not. So I like to work smarter, not harder. And the smart way is to use the technology to do it for you. So if you tab when you're first writing paragraphs, Word is smart enough to recognize you're wanting to indent every paragraph and will do it after that. But I'm guessing if yours isn't already indented, you didn't do that. So it's kind of too late to do that. All right, so it's looking good. I can see all my paragraphs, where they begin, where they end, and I've got all these beautiful pages going on. So the next thing we're going to do is what we call the heading. There's two things that sound very similar, the heading and the header. The header is this part at the top that's off the page. The heading is actually part of the page, and it's where you label your paper. So the first thing I did was I hit enter. And I'm going to go back here to where it's my first line. Now it's indented, and I don't want that. So all I do is I simply hit backspace, and it gets rid of the indent there. You're going to type your name. So I'm just going to pretend to be Johnny Thomas. And that's confusing, same last name, right? So I'm going to go Thompson. Okay, Johnny Thompson's the student. So you just type your first and last name there, enter. And then your teacher's name. So this is Mrs. Thomas. Enter. And then your class with your period, and I just tell my students to always just go English 11 dash and then the period. So if it's period 4, I'd put a 4. If it's period 6, I'd put a 6. Some other teachers like theirs a different way. I like to keep mine pretty concise as much as I can. The next thing is the date. Today is the 17th of November. And I'm ignoring what it's suggesting because I want it done in this format because that's the proper one to do to get used to that date. And then the assignment title you put next. For this one, that's my practice one, it's a final fairy tale narrative. All right, so that's looking good. The next thing we're going to do, because it comes on the next line, is our title for our actual piece. What I've just typed is the name of the assignment. That's not the same thing as the title of what I've written. Just think about it, is an author gives their work a unique title. They don't just call it my book. They eventually give it a unique title. They don't call it the thing that it is necessarily. So because this is creative writing that we've done, really, we want a creative title. So I hit enter and I'm still left aligned, but our titles, we want them centered. So I'm going to go up here to this. You'll see this, the shortcut is Control E if you want to learn the shortcuts. That's one I have a hard time remembering though, so I always just use this one. Brings me to the center, and that's where I can give it a nice creative title. There's rules to how we capitalize titles. We capitalize always the first word, no matter what word that is. We also capitalize nouns, adjectives, verbs. We just pretty much don't capitalize words like the, and, or, but, those types of things. So there's prepositions we don't capitalize as well. Words like of, around, but there's a few exceptions in there as well. So we just have to be careful. You can look up online if you're not sure of how to capitalize. And of course, we always capitalize proper nouns used within our titles. So I'm going to pretend that mine is, we did fairy tale rewrite, so I'm going to pretend that I wrote mine about the Little Mermaid, and so I retold that story, and I'm going to call it, and mine, let's say I recreated it, that it was no longer a mermaid, it was a unicorn. No, we'll go with the Pegasus. So it was the giant Pegasus. Unleashed. Maybe that fits. It doesn't need to be the name of your thing. It's just, you can start to play around with titles a lot. Just think about it when you read a book, and we usually take a thematic idea from it and we make that. So maybe mine, instead of saying what it is, I want something a little bit more creative, like maybe I do a play on words. If my theme is about maybe embracing who you are and not trying to be someone you're not, I could maybe call it something like embracing, embracing myself. I don't know, or embracing my identity. Or maybe I call it, Pegasus's embrace, because it belongs to Pegasus, and Pegasus is embracing their own identity. I don't know. There's lots of ways you can go with titles. They often take a while to figure out. Come up with something. Just try one out. It's not the biggest of deals. Just try to make it fun, interesting, and related to your whatever you've written. All right. So now we've got some basics here. We're almost done. We're almost ready to submit our paper. All of this looks really great. The next thing I need to do is, there's so many pages here, and sometimes when I'm reading them or you print one off for a teacher, you need the page numbers in the top right hand corner. I know with digital, sometimes this isn't emphasized as much anymore. So what you want to do, there's a couple ways to do this. One really fast way is, you see all this white space at the top of your page, double click it really fast, and it's going to open up the header and footer menu at the top, and you're going to see it says header. This is going to show up on every single page of your document. Notice it's to the left. I need my last name as the writer and the page number in the top right. Just like when you read a book, have you ever noticed it has the name of the book and the page numbers on it, every single page? Similar thing. But for shorter works and things for class, you always put the author's last name. And you're going to notice that in books too. We often have the author's last name on the pages. Now, it just depends. Some publishers don't. Some just do the page numbers. But for MLA, we want last name and page number. So this is open, so we can come over here to header and footer, and you see this thing called page number. It has a drop down menu. We want ours at the top of the page. We know that because I've already set it. And we want ours on the far right, which happens to be plain number 3. So plain number 3 is right there. That's the one we want. Looks exactly how we want it. Nothing fancy, it's just that one. You're going to notice it puts the cursor blinking in front of that number 1. Now, I didn't type the number 1. I told it I wanted it to number all my pages. So you're going to notice if you scroll, see how my page 2 says 2 now? Page 3 says 3. Page 4 says 4. It does it automatically, okay? If you were to just type the number 1 in there, it would show up on every single page, and that means you did not do this correctly. All right, so the last thing I need to do is type my last name. My pretend student's last name is Thompson. Type that in front, make sure there's one space between. If I want to be really fancy, I can make this font fit the rest of my paper and match up really nicely by being Times New Roman 12 point. And then I can either just double click into the major part of the text to close that, or I can click this close header and footer. So I could click that and it would close me out of this menu, or I can just go double click into the paper and there it is. And you're going to notice your header is more of like a gray color, and that's because it's something you're not editing right now. If you printed it off, it would look like black ink, like the rest of your paper. So this is it, ready to turn in. I always like to do a quick save button, even if my autosave is on, just to make sure that I have the latest one saved and I make sure the title's right. And then I am ready to submit my paper.